She sat alone with her son, but then a stranger said, "Let me cover it." The rain had been falling all morning, soft and steady, the kind that soaks through coats and hopes alike. Inside the little corner cafe on Maple Street, the windows were fogged with warmth, and the smell of fresh bread drifted like a promise. At a small table near the back, a young mother sat with her 6-year-old son pressed close against her side. She kept one arm around him, the other resting protectively over a worn purse that held everything left of their life that day. Her name was Emily. Most people who passed by wouldn't have looked twice. She wore a tired smile, and a coat 2 sizes too big, the sleeves frayed at the cuffs. Her little boy, Noah, had fallen asleep with his head on the table, one small hand still clutching a crayon he'd been coloring with earlier. In front of them sat 2 untouched glasses of water and a single children's menu turned upside down, like a white flag no one had noticed yet. Emily wasn't waiting for anyone. She was simply waiting for the courage to stand up and walk back into the rain, because there was nowhere else to go. The eviction notice was folded inside her pocket. The shelter downtown had no space left, and the last $23 in the world were tucked inside Noah's sock, so they wouldn't lose them. She had ordered nothing. When the waitress first came by, Emily had whispered, "Just water, please. We're fine." The waitress had nodded politely and moved on. That was 20 minutes ago. Across the room, an older man sat alone with a newspaper he wasn't really reading. His name was Daniel. He came to this cafe every Tuesday after visiting his wife's grave 10 blocks away. For 3 years he had ordered the same thing, black coffee and a blueberry muffin, and left half of both untouched. Grief had made him quiet, careful, almost invisible. But today, something pulled his eyes from the page. Maybe it was the way Emily kept smoothing Noah's hair, even though he was asleep. Maybe it was the gentle way she whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here," every time he stirred. Or maybe it was simply that God chooses ordinary Tuesdays to remind ordinary people they still have hearts. Daniel watched as the waitress passed the table again without stopping. He saw Emily's shoulders drop just a little lower. He saw her count the coins in her mind and decide, once again, they weren't enough. Then Noah woke up. He rubbed his eyes and looked around, confused by the soft clatter of cups and the smell of food he had tasted in 2 days. "Mummy," he said in a small, cracked voice, "can we have pancakes? I'm really hungry." Emily's heart broke clean in 2. She pulled him closer and kissed the top of his head. "Soon, sweetheart," she promised, even though soon felt impossible. Just a little longer. Daniel closed his newspaper. He didn't think about it. He simply stood, walked across the cafe, and stopped beside their table. Emily looked up, startled, ready to apologize for taking space. But before she could speak, Daniel smiled, the kind of smile that had been hiding for years, and said softly, "Hi. I couldn't help noticing. Would you and your son let me buy you breakfast today? I'd consider it a kindness to me." Emily opened her mouth, then closed it again. Tears filled her eyes so quickly she couldn't hide them. We don't want to trouble anyone," she managed. "It's no trouble," Daniel said. "In fact, I was hoping someone would share my table. It's been lonely over there." Noah looked up at the stranger with wide, serious eyes. "Do you like pancakes too?" he asked. Daniel laughed, a warm sound that surprised even him. "They're my favorite," he said, "especially with extra blueberries." He pulled out the chair and sat down like it was the most natural thing in the world. He waved the waitress over and ordered without looking at the menu, 2 stacks of blueberry pancakes, please. One with extra whipped cream for my new friend here. And whatever the lady would like. Emily tried to protest again, but Daniel gently shook his head. "Please," he said, "let me cover it. Today, let someone else carry a little." The pancakes arrived steaming and golden. Noah's eyes grew round as saucers. He looked at his mom for permission. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks now, and he took the first bite like it was Christmas morning. While they ate, Daniel didn't ask questions at her. He simply listened as Emily told him, in quiet pieces, about the layoff, the overdue rent. A way hope sometimes feels thinner than paper. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Grief and loss speak the same language, even when the stories are different. When the plates were clean and Noah's face was sticky with syrup, Daniel reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. He slid it across the table. Inside was $200, and a note that read, "For the next few nights, the shelter on 8th takes walk-ins after 6. Ask for Maria. She owes me a favor." Emily stared at the envelope like it might disappear. "I can't take this," she whispered. "You already gave me something," Daniel said. "You let me remember what it feels like to matter to someone again. That's worth far more." He stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing," he said, and reached into his pocket again. He pulled out a simple silver key on a red ribbon, the spare key to the small apartment above the bookstore he owned downtown. "It's nothing fancy," he said, "but it's warm, and it's yours for as long as you need. No rent until you lay on your feet." My wife would have wanted it that way. Emily couldn't speak. She simply stood, walked around the table, and hugged him like a daughter hugs a father she thought she'd lost forever. Noah wrapped his arms around both their legs. 3 months later, Emily was the new morning barista at that very cafe. She wore a clean apron and a smile that no longer had to try. Noah had his own little corner table where he colored pictures for the regulars, and every Tuesday, like clockwork, Daniel came in for black coffee and a blueberry muffin except. Now he never left half of it behind. "People still talk about the day," a stranger said. "Let me cover it," and meant far more than breakfast. "They say if you sit quietly in that cafe on a rainy morning, you can almost hear it again. A little boy asking for pancakes, a mother learning she wasn't invisible, and an older man discovering that love doesn't tea, and when someone leaves it, just waits for the next person who needs it. Sometimes the smallest yes, letting someone help, letting someone in, becomes the biggest miracle of all. If this story warmed your heart the way it warmed mine, share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness is still out there, waiting to find them. And the next time you see a mother and child with only water on their table, maybe you'll be the one brave enough to say, "Let me cover it."